I am Nora, 29 years old. 3 days ago, my family called and told me not to come to New Year's Eve. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable, my mom said, her voice calm and final, as if she were turning down a business proposal. So I spent December 31st alone in my studio apartment in Cambridge, watching strangers celebrate through my window while my family raised champagne glasses in their Greenwich mansion without me. At exactly 12:01 a.m., my phone rang. It was my brother Ryan. His voice was shaking. Nora, what did you do? Dad just saw the news and he's not breathing right. Mom is screaming. What the hell did you do? The news he was talking about was that my company, Neural Thread Inc., had just gone public at midnight with a valuation of $2.1 billion, making me one of the youngest female tech billionaires in America. But the money wasn't the real shock. It was what I revealed in the Forbes interview that went live at the exact same time. 3 years of emails, patents, and recordings proving my brother had tried to steal my work. Before I tell you what happened that night, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly connect with this story. And if you're watching this, leave a comment telling me where you're from and what time it is there. I'd love to know who's listening. Let me take you back 3 years, when all of this started. The Townsend family wasn't simply wealthy. We were legacy old money from Greenwich, Connecticut, the kind that came with a 40-year-old medical device company, a mansion with actual columns, and the expectation that you'd know which fork to use at charity galas before you turned 10. My brother Ryan was prepared for all of it. 5 years older than me, effortlessly charming, and the kind of person who could enter a room and make everyone feel important. He wore Tom Ford suits like they were jeans. He played golf with investors. He was everything our parents wanted in an heir. I was different. I liked coding more than cocktail parties. I got into MIT for computer science, and while my parents smiled for the acceptance photos, I heard my mother tell a friend, "It's a phase. She'll grow out of it and do something more practical." When I graduated at the top of my class with a research focus on AI-driven medical diagnostics, my family didn't attend the ceremony. They were at Ryan's golf tournament, a charity event, my mother explained. "Ryan needs us there for networking, sweetie. You understand?" I understood. I understood when I moved into a tiny studio in Cambridge with 2 roommates, while Ryan got the penthouse in Back Bay. I understood when family dinners became strategy sessions, where they discussed industries, quarterly reports, and I sat quietly, moving my food around a Wedgwood plate. I understood when my father introduced Ryan to business partners as the future of the company and introduced me as our daughter who does computers. But here's what I learned early. In my family, brilliance was less valuable than charm. Innovation mattered less than tradition, and I was less valuable than Ryan. I just didn't know how much less until 3 years ago. In March 2022, I was working on something big. Not just interesting research big, revolutionary big. My 2 co-founders from MIT and I had developed an algorithm that could analyze medical imaging data faster and more accurately than any existing system, allowing early detection of diseases that usually killed people before doctors even knew what to look for. We called it Neural Thread because it connected neural networks in a way no one had done before. We were months away from beta testing. Investor meetings were scheduled. Everything was falling into place. Then my mother called. "Nora, we need to talk about Ryan." Her voice had that edge, the one that meant this wasn't a request. "Industries is going through a difficult quarter. Your brother is under enormous pressure. Your family needs you to help." I explained that I was in the middle of critical development and that my startup was at a fragile stage. "Startup?" she said, as if the word tasted bad. "Nora, startups are for people who have nothing to lose. You have a legacy. You have a family business that's been around for 40 years. Ryan needs support, and you're sitting in that little apartment playing with computers." The message was clear. My work was a hobby. Ryan's work was real. But I'd learned something at MIT that my mother never understood. Protect your intellectual property before someone else claims it. So before I agreed to anything, I met with James Kirby, a lawyer who specialized in IP protection for technology startups. We sat in Flower Bakery in Cambridge, my laptop open between us, while he walked me through the paperwork. If anyone tries to claim your work, James said, sliding the patent application across the table, we'll have a paper trail that even the best lawyers can't break. I filed the patent on March 15th, 2022. Every line of code, every algorithm, every iteration, and every timestamp was documented and legally mine. I didn't plan to use it. I simply wanted insurance. I agreed to consult for Ryan. My mother called it a family obligation. I drove down to the industry's headquarters in Stamford, a glass building with our family name in brushed steel letters above the entrance. Ryan's office was on the top floor with a corner view, walls covered in framed awards, and a black and white print of our grandfather. Nora. He hugged me as if we were close. We weren't. Thanks for coming. This means everything. I explained some basic concepts about integrating AI into diagnostic devices. Not the core algorithm. I wasn't careless, but I showed him enough to explain the potential. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, nodding enthusiastically. This is exactly what we need, he said. Investors are going to love this. 2 weeks later, he invited me to a pitch meeting with a venture capital firm from Boston. I sat in the back of the conference room, surrounded by a walnut table, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sound, while Ryan presented my ideas, my research, and my framework. Industries is pioneering the integration of artificial intelligence into medical device manufacturing, he said, clicking through a slide deck I'd never seen before. We're positioned to revolutionize early diagnostics. One of the investors glanced at me. And you are? Ryan didn't hesitate. That's my sister Nora. She's been helping with some of the technical research. Helping as if I were his assistant. After the meeting, Ryan handed me a document. Just a standard NDA? He said, to protect the family business. You understand? I read it. It was a non-disclosure agreement covering all proprietary information related to industries. This is to protect me too, right? I asked. Of course, he smiled. We're family, Nora. We protect each other. I signed it because I still believed family meant something. Thanksgiving 2023. The dining room at my parents' house looked like a magazine spread. A long table was set with my grandmother's Wedgwood crystal wine glasses catching the chandelier light, and arrangements of white roses and eucalyptus running down the center. There were 12 guests, business partners, family friends, and a couple who had just endowed a wing at Greenwich Hospital. My mother seated me at the far end next to my father's golf buddy's wife, who spent the entire appetizer course talking about her Pilates instructor. When the main course arrived, turkey on a silver platter with matching serving dishes, my mother stood to make introductions. Most of you know my son Ryan, she beamed, CEO of Townsend Industries. We're so proud of what he's building. He's just closed a partnership with a major hospital network. There was applause. Ryan raised his wine glass with a humble smile. And this is our daughter, Nora. My mother's voice changed, still pleasant but cooler. Nora works in technology. She's very bright, but she's not much for socializing. A few polite smiles followed. One of the guests, a silver-haired man in a blue blazer, leaned forward. Technology? What kind? I opened my mouth to answer, but Ryan interrupted. Nora is still figuring out her path, he said, laughing lightly. She's very introverted, brilliant with computers, but you know. He made a vague gesture. Not great with people. The table laughed with polite, dismissive laughter. I felt my face grow hot. I stared at my plate and the perfectly carved turkey I suddenly couldn't eat. After dinner, my mother pulled me into the kitchen. Nora, I know you don't mean to, but you make people uncomfortable. You barely said a word in there. Could you try to be warmer? I didn't get a chance to, sweetheart. I'm not criticizing. I'm helping. People like warmth. They like energy. You're so... She sighed. Heavy. I left before dessert. In June 2024, Ryan called me into his office. Emergency meeting, he said. I drove down on a Tuesday morning. His assistant waved me through. She'd seen me enough times to recognize me. Ryan was standing at the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the water. He turned when I entered, and his expression was different. Tense. We need the full algorithm, Nora. I blinked. What? The AI diagnostic tool, the one you've been working on. We need it for Townsend Industries. Investors are pulling back, and we need a breakthrough. This could save the company. Ryan, that's not Industries' work. That's my startup. Your startup? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nora, You've been consulting for us. You signed an NDA. Everything you've worked on in relation to our business belongs to the company. That's not how NDAs work. Don't tell me how they work. His voice hardened. I'm trying to save our family's legacy. Don't you care about that? Before I could answer, the door opened. My mother walked in, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She must have been waiting. Nora? She sat down in one of Ryan's leather chairs and crossed her legs. Your brother is right. You signed an agreement. You have a legal obligation. The NDA covers industry's proprietary information, I said slowly. It doesn't cover my personal projects. Personal projects that you developed while consulting for us, Ryan shot back. That's a conflict of interest. My mother's expression turned cold. Nora, don't make this a legal issue. Family doesn't sue family. Give Ryan the algorithm and we can all move forward. I looked between them. My brother and my mother were both staring at me as if I were the problem. No, I said. Ryan's face flushed. Careful, Nora. You don't want to make this ugly. I left, but not before pressing the voice memo button on my phone inside my pocket. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. After that meeting, I stopped receiving invitations to family dinners. It wasn't dramatic. No one called to officially disinvite me. The weekly emails from my mother's assistant simply stopped arriving. Dinner this Sunday, 6 p.m. Just stopped coming. Instead, I saw Ryan's Instagram, photos of family gatherings I wasn't attending. Great night with the family, the caption said, showing my parents, Ryan, his girlfriend, and even distant cousins I barely knew. I wasn't in any of them. My MIT friends noticed. Everything okay with your family? My old roommate asked over coffee. You haven't mentioned them in months. What was I supposed to say? That I'd been erased? That I was being punished for refusing to hand over 3 years of my work? I tried calling my father once. He picked up on the fourth ring and sounded distracted. Dad, what's going on? Why am I not being invited anymore? He sighed. Your mother and Ryan are under a lot of stress right now. The company is struggling. Maybe it's better if you give everyone some space. Space from what? I haven't done anything. You refused to help your brother after everything this family has given you. Everything this family had given me. I felt something crack open inside me. You didn't come to my MIT graduation. You didn't ask about my work once in 5 years. What exactly have you given me? Silence. Then he said, I think you should apologize to your mother and Ryan. When you're ready to be part of this family again, let us know. He hung up. I sat in my car outside the MIT campus, watching students walk by with backpacks and coffee cups, and I realized something. I'd been erased, not by strangers or enemies, but by the people who were supposed to love me. On December 20th, 2024, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. Nora? No greeting. I wanted to let you know that Christmas this year is going to be family only. I waited. The meaning sank in slowly. You're asking me not to come. I'm suggesting that it might be better for everyone if you didn't. Ryan is bringing some very important clients. It's a crucial time for the company, and we need the atmosphere to be positive. And I'm not positive. You're angry, Nora. We can all feel it. You make people uncomfortable. Your energy is... My energy? I laughed sharply. Mom, I haven't seen you in 6 months. How would you know what my energy is? I'm trying to protect you, she said, and she almost sounded as if she believed it. You're miserable here. You hate these gatherings anyway. Isn't it better to just skip it this year? You're uninviting me from Christmas. I'm giving you an out. Her voice hardened. Take it gracefully, Nora. I hung up. I sat in my 500-square-foot studio apartment in Cambridge and looked at the small fake Christmas tree I'd bought from Target. I looked at the lights strung across my window and at the empty space where family was supposed to be. Then I opened. Miss Townsend, we understand Neural Thread Inc. is preparing to go public in Q4 2024. We'd like to feature you in our 30 Under 30 Tech Innovators series and cover your company's IPO announcement. We're particularly interested in your journey as a female founder in AI. Would you be available for an interview? I read it 3 times before replying. Yes, and I have a story you're going to want to hear. December 28th, my mother called again. Nora, about New Year's Eve, Ryan is hosting at the house. Investors, potential partners, some important people from Boston Medical. It's essentially a business event. Okay, So I wanted to make sure we're clear. This isn't a family party, it's professional. You understand what I'm saying? You don't want me there. I don't want anyone there who's going to create tension. Ryan is under enormous pressure. His entire career depends on these relationships. If you showed up and what? Said something, told the truth? She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. Don't come, Nora. For everyone's sake, just stay away. Don't worry, I said. I will. I hung up. I stood in my tiny kitchen, barely large enough for one person, and looked at my calendar. December 31st was empty. No plans, no invitations, no family. I thought about calling friends, but they all had plans. Parties, dinners, trips, normal people doing normal things with people who wanted them around. Instead, I opened my laptop. The Forbes interview was scheduled to go live at midnight on January 1st, 2025. The writer had spent 3 weeks verifying everything: patent documents, email chains, the recording from Ryan's office, and testimony from Dr. Elena Martinez, my former MIT professor who had watched me develop the algorithm from the beginning. James Kirby, my lawyer, had reviewed every word. You're legally protected, he'd said. The NDA doesn't cover your personal IP. Everything you're revealing is documented and true. They can't touch you. The article was ready. TechCrunch had a companion piece scheduled to publish at 12:01 a.m. My company's IPO announcement was queued. All I had to do was let it happen. I looked at the clock. December 28th, 9:47 p.m. 3 days until my family's perfect New Year's Eve party. 3 days until the truth went public. I said one word out loud to my empty apartment. Good. December 31st, 2024, 11 p.m. I sat on my couch in the dark, my laptop open, Instagram pulled up on my phone. Ryan's story showed the party. The mansion was lit up like a resort. White lights wrapped around every column. A string quartet played in the foyer. People in cocktail attire held champagne flutes and laughed. My mother was in a black Armani gown, holding court. My father wore a tuxedo, shaking hands with men wearing expensive watches. Ryan stood at the center of everything, confident and charming, raising a glass with someone I recognized from the business pages. A hospital CEO, perhaps, or a major investor. No one noticed I wasn't there. No one asked. I watched strangers through my window setting off fireworks in the park across the street. Couples kissed. Groups of friends counted down together. I was alone, not only physically, but existentially. I refreshed my email. The Forbes article was staged and ready. Publish time, 12 a.m. EST, 6 minutes away. I opened the draft one more time and scrolled through the sections. Neural Thread Inc. goes public at $2.1 billion valuation. Founder Nora Townsend reveals family betrayal. Email evidence shows brother attempted IP theft. There were screenshots, timestamps, and the June recording, all transcribed and verified. Dr. Martinez's statement read, I can confirm that Nora Townsend developed this algorithm independently during her graduate work and subsequent private research. Any claims to the contrary are factually false. Then came James Kirby's legal analysis. The NDA signed by Ms. Townsend pertains only to industry's existing proprietary information. It does not and cannot extend to her independent work. My cursor hovered over the browser tab. The countdown started. 10, 9, 8. I looked at my phone. Ryan's Instagram story updated. Everyone was raising their glasses. 3, 2, 1. Fireworks exploded outside my window. I refreshed Forbes. The article went live. The Forbes homepage refreshed. My face appeared on the screen, a professional photo with a serious expression. The headline was in bold. Neural Thread Inc. goes public at 2.1B valuation. Founder reveals family betrayal. Then the TechCrunch notification hit my phone. MIT grad becomes youngest female AI billionaire and accuses brother of IP theft. Twitter exploded. I watched the notifications pile up. The hashtag neural threads started trending. The TV showed crowds in Times Square, confetti falling, people kissing, crying, and celebrating. My phone stayed silent for exactly 60 seconds. Then it started. Text messages flooded in, numbers I didn't recognize. Journalists, former colleagues, and people from MIT I hadn't spoken to in years. My inbox crashed and recovered. Email after email loaded. Forbes writer, it's live. Prepare yourself. James Kirby, you're legally clear. Don't respond to anyone without talking to me first. Dr. Martinez, Nora, I'm so proud of you. Call me if you need anything. I sat in the silence of my apartment, my hands shaking, and thought about my family 2 hours away. I imagined the moment someone at that party would check their phone, see the headline, and interrupt the champagne and laughter to say something. 12:01 a.m., my phone rang. I stared at the screen as it vibrated against the coffee table. Then I picked up. "Hello, Ryan." His voice was shaking. Behind him, I could hear chaos, raised voices, someone crying, and the sound of glass. "What did you do? Dad just saw the news and he's not breathing right. Mom is screaming. What the hell did you do?" I kept my voice level and calm. "I went public." "Ryan, my company, my work." "Your company?" He was shouting now. "You signed an NDA. You can't just... This is defamation. This is..." "Mom, I'm talking to her." His voice moved away from the phone, then came back. "You put our private conversations in Forbes. You recorded us." I documented the truth. "The truth?" He laughed, wild and bitter. "You published emails out of context. You made it look like I stole from you when all I did was try to help the family business." "Ryan," I closed my eyes. "The patent was filed 4 months before your first investor pitch. The timestamps don't lie." "Those are coincidences. People work on similar ideas all the time. Not with identical frameworks. Not with the exact terminology I used in my research notes." Behind him, I heard my mother's voice, shrill and angry. "Is that her? Give me the phone." "You've destroyed us," Ryan said. His voice cracked. "Investors are already calling. They're pulling out. The board is... Do you understand what you've done? You've killed this company. You've killed our family." "No, Ryan. You did that when you tried to erase me. You called me your assistant. You told investors I was helping with research I created. You demanded that I hand over my algorithm and threatened me when I refused. That's not help. That's theft." "The NDA? The NDA doesn't cover my personal IP. Ask your lawyers, or better yet, read the Forbes article. James Kirby explained it pretty clearly." Silence. Then a click. He had hung up. My phone immediately rang again. "My mother." I answered. "But before I tell you that conversation, I need you to understand how I got here." 6 months earlier, July 2024, I was sitting in Tata Bakery near MIT with Dr. Elena Martinez, my former professor and thesis advisor. Elena was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and direct, the kind of professor who didn't waste time on pleasantries. She had won awards for her work in neural network architecture. When she asked to meet, I came. "Your algorithm is exceptional, Nora," she said, stirring her coffee. "I've reviewed the papers you sent. This is publishable, career-defining. Why are you sitting on it?" I told her everything: the family pressure, the NDA, Ryan's demands, and the gradual removal from family life. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she set down her cup. "An NDA cannot steal your intellectual property if you never gave it to them." She continued, "You filed the patent under your name, correct?" "Yes, March 2022. "Before Ryan even asked?" "Yes." "Then you're protected. But Nora, you need documentation. Emails, recordings, anything that establishes timeline and ownership. If this escalates, you need evidence that speaks for itself." "I have it," I said quietly. "I've been keeping records since the beginning." "Good." She leaned forward. "But here's what I need you to understand. Silence protects abusers. You think you're keeping the peace. You're not. You're letting them write the story. But if you speak up, you'll face consequences. Absolutely. Your family will be angry. Some people won't understand, but you'll have your integrity, you'll have your work, and you'll show every young woman in STEM that they don't have to disappear to make other people comfortable." She pulled out her laptop. "I'm willing to go on record. If you decide to tell your story, I'll verify every piece of your research. I'll testify to the timeline, the originality, all of it." "You do that, Nora. Documentation protects you, but witnesses make it undeniable." I left that meeting with a decision half made and a recorder full of truth. September 2024, Sand Hill Road, Palo Alto. My two co-founders and I sat across from a venture capital firm that specialized in healthcare technology. The office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Silicon Valley, modern furniture, and a wall of startup logos they had funded. The partner, in his mid-40s with a Stanford MBA and a sharp suit, leaned back in his chair. "Neural technology is solid. Your early trials are impressive. We're ready to back your IPO. What's your timeline?" I glanced at my co-founders. "We discussed Q4 2024, I said, "ideally around New Year." "New Year?" He frowned. "That's unconventional. Markets are slow during the holidays. Why not wait until February or March when institutional investors are back? I chose my words carefully. There's a personal milestone I'd like the announcement to coincide with, a statement I need to make. A statement? He looked intrigued. Care to elaborate? Family issues, I said. Intellectual property disputes. I want the IPO to go public at a specific moment when the truth needs to be told. My co-founder touched my arm in warning, urging caution. But I continued. I want to include a personal. If they don't, we have options. But let's let the process work. January 2nd, 2025. I met with the board's outside counsel at a law firm in downtown Boston. James Kirby sat beside me. 3 board members were across the table, along with 2 attorneys representing the company. They asked detailed questions about my work, the timeline, my communications with Ryan, and the agreement I'd signed. I provided everything: patent filings, source code records, emails, calendar entries, research notes, the June recording, Dr. Martinez's statement, my co-founder's testimony. One of the board members looked through the documents carefully. Your documentation is extensive, Miss Townsend. It had to be, I said. I knew eventually someone would question whether the work was mine. The board chair nodded. We understand. The investigation continued for several weeks. During that time, I focused on Neural Thread. The IPO had gone through exactly as planned. The company opened at a valuation of $2.1 billion, and our technology immediately attracted attention from hospitals, investors, and medical technology companies. But the public attention also created pressure. Every interview brought the same questions. What happened with your brother? Why did your family reject you? Did Ryan really attempt to claim your technology? I answered carefully. I didn't speculate. I didn't exaggerate. I referred back to the documentation. The evidence spoke for itself. Meanwhile, the investigation into Townsend Industries continued. On January 17th, the board contacted James with an update. They had interviewed Ryan. They had reviewed internal emails. They had examined investor presentations and compared them with my original research. They had spoken with employees who attended the meetings. They had also reviewed the NDA. The conclusion was becoming difficult to dispute. Ryan had used technical concepts and material derived from my work without obtaining ownership rights. More importantly, he had represented the technology to investors as part of Townsend Industries' development strategy. The board's attorneys wanted to know exactly when he first received information about Neural Thread. James told them the answer was already documented. March 2022. That was before Ryan's investor presentation, before his hospital partnership discussions, before Townsend Industries publicly announced its AI initiative, and months before he began presenting similar technology to potential investors. The timeline was clear. On January 24th, the board released another statement. After completing its preliminary investigation, the board had determined that Ryan Townsend would no longer serve as CEO. The investigation had identified serious concerns regarding intellectual property practices, disclosure procedures, and executive conduct. He was removed from his position. My father resigned from the board shortly afterward. My mother stopped contacting me. Ryan never apologized. Instead, his attorneys continued negotiating with the company and with my legal team. Eventually, the matter was resolved privately. The exact terms were confidential, but the agreement confirmed that Neural Thread's intellectual property belonged to me and my company. There was no transfer of ownership to Townsend Industries. That was the part that mattered most. Not the money, not the headlines. Ownership, recognition, the right to claim credit for work I had actually created. Several months later, I returned to MIT to speak with graduate students in the computer science department. Dr. Martinez introduced me. She didn't mention the family conflict at first. She talked about the research, the algorithm, the development process, the importance of documenting original work. Then she looked at me and said, "Tell them what you learned." I stood at the front of the classroom. I told them that talent isn't always recognized by the people closest to you. I told them that family relationships don't replace contracts, documentation, or legal protections. And I told them something I wished I'd understood earlier. You don't have to make yourself smaller simply because other people are uncomfortable with your success. After the talk, several students approached me. One asked about patents. Another wanted advice about protecting research before joining a company. A young woman waited until everyone else had left. She told me her supervisor had been taking credit for her work. I didn't know what to do, she said. I gave her the same advice Dr. Martinez had given me. Document everything. Keep records. Understand your agreements. And don't assume that staying silent will automatically protect you. Sometimes silence only makes it easier for someone else to tell the story for you. By the summer of 2025, NeuroThread had expanded into several major hospital systems. Our technology was being used to assist with early detection and medical imaging analysis. The company continued growing. The Forbes article remained online. So did the documentation supporting it. People still had opinions about my family. Some believed I had handled everything correctly. Others thought I should have kept the dispute private. I understood both reactions. But privacy should never require someone to surrender ownership of their work. My relationship with my family never returned to what it had been. Ryan and I have not spoken since that New Year's Eve. My father occasionally sends short emails. My mother hasn't contacted me in months. There was no perfect reconciliation, no final family dinner where everyone apologized, no simple ending. Instead, there was distance, and eventually, acceptance. I stopped waiting for my family to validate me. I stopped measuring my worth by whether they invited me to dinner. And I stopped believing that being accepted required me to give up what I had built. Looking back, the New Year's Eve rejection was painful. But it also gave me the space to make a decision I had avoided for years. I would protect my work, I would tell the truth, and I would let the evidence speak. NeuroThread became successful because of the work my co-founders and I had done. Not because of my family's name, not because of Ryan, not because of their business connections, because we built something valuable and proved that it worked. Today, I'm still 29. I'm still a founder. I'm still a daughter, even if my relationship with my parents is complicated, and I'm still learning. But I no longer feel like I need permission to take up space. My family once told me that I made people uncomfortable. Maybe I did. Maybe being different was always going to make some people uncomfortable. But I eventually realized that discomfort isn't the same thing as wrongdoing. Sometimes it simply means you've stopped behaving the way people expect. And that was the lesson I carried forward. Protect what you create. Keep evidence. Know your rights. And never allow someone else's expectations to become the limit of what you believe you can achieve. Then pretend. I looked at her for a long moment. You want me to lie? Her expression tightened. I want you to protect what's left of this family. The family business isn't my responsibility. It's your family's legacy. Mom, you made that very clear when you told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas. She looked away. That was different. No, it wasn't. She reached into her handbag and placed an envelope on the table. What is this? A proposal. I opened it. Inside was a financial settlement. A large one. More money than I'd ever received from my family. I looked at the number, then pushed the envelope back toward her. You really think you can buy my silence? I'm trying to make this right. No, you're trying to make this disappear. Her eyes filled with tears. Nora, please. I stood up. I spent years trying to earn your approval. I worked harder. I stayed quiet. I accepted being ignored. I helped Ryan even when it hurt my own company. And when I finally refused to give him something he had no right to have, you told me I was the problem. She didn't answer. You don't get to offer me money now and call that an apology. I walked toward the door. Behind me, she said quietly, You're going to regret this. I stopped. I already regret staying silent for as long as I did. Then I left. January 6th. The board of Townsend Industries announced that its independent investigation had been expanded. The new evidence from the investor pitch deck had changed everything. The outside counsel confirmed that Ryan had presented technology that substantially matched my patented framework. The board also discovered internal communications showing that Ryan had discussed obtaining ownership of the algorithm before he ever presented it to investors. That was important. It established intent. Ryan wasn't simply confused about ownership. He knew the technology belonged to me, and he tried to position it as company property anyway. The board terminated him as CEO. His removal was immediate. A second statement followed. Based on the findings of the independent investigation, the board has determined that Mr. Ryan Townsend violated company policies concerning intellectual property and executive conduct. The company also announced that it would review several previous transactions involving Ryan's leadership. The consequences continued. Several investors withdrew. 2 hospital systems suspended negotiations. The company's stock continued falling. Employees were understandably worried. But the board also announced a restructuring plan designed to protect the company's employees and stabilize operations. That part mattered to me. The company had hundreds of people who depended on their jobs. They hadn't made Ryan's decisions. They shouldn't have to pay for them. I contacted the board through James. I want to know what they're doing to protect employees. James looked at me. You don't have to involve yourself. I know. Then why do you want to? Because I don't want innocent people losing everything. The board agreed to meet with me. I proposed something simple, an independent technology review. If Townsend Industries had legitimate products and valuable employees, they should not disappear simply because its CEO had violated ethical standards. The board accepted the proposal. Several months later, Townsend Industries survived. It was smaller. Its leadership changed. Its reputation took years to recover. But employees kept their jobs. The company also adopted new intellectual property procedures and independent compliance reviews. Ryan eventually left the industry. I never learned exactly where he went. My mother and I remained distant. My father and I slowly began speaking again. It wasn't easy. Trust doesn't return because someone says they're sorry. It returns through consistent actions. He started calling occasionally. Sometimes we talked about business, sometimes about ordinary things. He asked about neural thread. I asked about his health. Neither of us pretended the past hadn't happened. We simply stopped avoiding it. 1 year after the IPO, I returned to my parents' house for the first time. Not for Christmas, not for a family gathering. My father had asked me to meet him there. The house looked exactly the same. The columns, the long driveway, the framed photographs, the dining room where I had once sat at the far end of the table. I stood there for a moment and realized something. The house hadn't changed. I had. I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't need anyone in that room to tell me that I belonged. My father came downstairs. He looked at me. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I know. We sat in the same dining room. He poured coffee. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I should have defended you years ago. Yes, I can't change that. No, but I can make sure I don't repeat it. I nodded. That's a start. It wasn't a perfect ending. It wasn't reconciliation with everyone. There was no dramatic family reunion. There didn't need to be. Some relationships can be repaired, others can only be understood and left behind. What mattered was that I had finally stopped measuring my value by how my family treated me. Neural Thread continued growing. We hired more engineers. We expanded our medical partnerships. We invested in research. And I made a point of creating a company culture very different from the one I had grown up around. Credit belonged to the person who did the work. Ideas were documented. Contributions were recorded. And employees were encouraged to speak up when something wasn't right. I didn't want anyone working for me to feel the way I had felt. A few years earlier, I had been sitting alone in a small Cambridge apartment, convinced that my family had decided I wasn't important. Now I understood that their judgment had never been an accurate measure of my worth. It was simply their judgment, and I didn't have to accept it. The New Year's Eve that began with my family telling me to stay away became the night my professional life changed forever. Not because I became wealthy, not because Forbes published my story, not because Ryan lost his position. It changed because I finally chose to defend something that had always belonged to me. My work, my name, my voice, and my right to be recognized for what I created. I never wanted to destroy my family. I wanted them to stop trying to erase me. In the end, the evidence did what arguments couldn't. It established what happened. And once the facts were documented, verified, and made public, there was nothing left to hide behind. The lesson I took from it wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries. Protect your work. Understand what you sign. Keep records. Seek qualified legal advice when necessary. And don't confuse keeping the peace with accepting unfair treatment. Sometimes standing up for yourself will disappoint people. Sometimes it will change relationships, but losing someone's approval is not the same as losing your worth. For years, I thought being accepted by my family was the goal. Eventually, I realized it wasn't. The goal was to become someone I could respect. And for the first time, I did. Her voice hardened. Do you understand what you're doing to us? To your father's legacy? To you? I met her eyes. You're worried about your reputation, about what your friends at the country club are saying. Don't be childish. I'm not being childish. I'm being clear. I will not retract the truth. I will not pretend this didn't happen. I will not disappear just to make you comfortable. Then you're willing to destroy us. No, Mom. I'm willing to protect myself. If that destroys you, maybe you should ask why protecting me was never a priority. She stood and put her sunglasses back on. You'll regret this. I already regret it, I said quietly. I regret that it was necessary. She walked out without another word. I sat alone, my coffee untouched, and felt something settle in my chest. I wasn't going to save them. They had to save themselves. January 6th, an email that changed everything. Dear Ms. Townsend, on behalf of the Women in Tech Summit, we would like to invite you to be our keynote speaker at our annual gala on February 15th, 2025 in Boston. Your story, standing up for your intellectual property, refusing to be silenced, and building a billion-dollar company against extraordinary personal obstacles is exactly what our community needs to hear. We have 1,200 attendees registered, including students, professionals, and industry leaders. We would be honored if you would share your experience. I read it twice, then called Dr. Martinez. They want me to speak at a gala in front of 1,200 people. That's wonderful, Nora. I don't want to be defined by family drama. I don't want to be the woman whose brother stole her work. I want to be known for my algorithm, for my company, for what I built. Her voice was gentle. You're not defined by drama. You're defined by what you built and by refusing to let anyone take it from you. That's the story. But how many women do you think are sitting on their work right now because they're scared? Because their family told them it doesn't matter? Because they don't want to make people uncomfortable? She paused. You're not just telling your story. You're giving them permission to tell theirs. I thought about the emails I'd received, hundreds of them, from women who said I gave them courage. Okay, I said, I'll do it. I started writing the speech that night. Not about revenge, not about family dysfunction, but about boundaries, documentation, the difference between keeping the peace and protecting your integrity, about what it costs to disappear and what it takes to refuse. I wrote until 3 a.m., deleting and rewriting, trying to find words that were honest without being bitter. By the time I finished, I had a draft. Not perfect, but true. And truth, I was learning, was the only thing that mattered. January 10th, a text from Ryan. Nora, can we talk? Not as CEO and founder, but as brother and sister. I stared at the message for 2 days. On January 12th, I called him back. Nora, he sounded exhausted. Thank you. I didn't think you'd call. What do you want, Ryan? I wanted to say. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I was so focused on saving the company, on proving I could lead it, that I didn't think about what I was taking from you. You didn't realize, or you didn't care? Long silence. Both, maybe. I don't know. I thought I was helping, bringing you into the family business, making your work part of something bigger. It was already part of something bigger. My company, my vision. You tried to erase that. I know, his voice cracked. And I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it with one conversation, I said. But if you want to start, really start, you can issue a public statement. Acknowledge what you did. Not because lawyers told you to, not because the board demanded it, but because it's the truth. If I do that, the board will fire me permanently. Then you have a choice to make. Nora, please. You told investors my work was yours. You tried to sell my algorithm to outside firms. You threatened me when I refused to hand it over. Those aren't misunderstandings, Ryan. Those are choices. And if you want any chance at redemption, you need to own them. You're asking me to end my career. I'm asking you to tell the truth. What you do with that is up to you. He was quiet for a long time. I need to think. Take your time, I said. I'm not going anywhere. We hung up. I didn't know if he'd do it. I didn't know if he even could. But I'd given him the roadmap. Whether he took it wasn't my responsibility anymore. January 15th, Ryan posted a statement on LinkedIn and Twitter. I saw it at 9 a.m., sitting in a coffee shop in Cambridge, trying to work on Q1 projections for Neural Thread. I owe my sister Nora Townsend a public apology. Over the past 3 years, I attempted to claim credit for work that was entirely hers. I presented her algorithm to investors as if it had been developed by Townsend Industries. I pressured her to hand over her intellectual property. When she refused, I threatened legal action. I was wrong. Nora developed Neural Thread's core technology independently, filed patents in her own name, and built a company from the ground up. While I tried to take it from her, I violated her trust. I damaged her professionally and personally, and I justified it by telling myself I was protecting the family business. That was a lie. I was protecting my ego. I am stepping down from all roles at Townsend Industries to allow for an independent investigation. I hope in time to earn back trust, not through words, but through actions. But first, I needed to say this. Nora, I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved support, recognition, and respect. Instead, I gave you betrayal. I hope you can forgive me someday, but I understand if you can't. I read it 3 times. The comments flooded in. This took courage, respect. Too little, too late. He only apologized because he got caught. Apologies don't undo theft. At least he admitted it. Most people never do. I didn't know what I felt. Not vindication exactly, not satisfaction. Relief maybe that he'd finally told the truth, but also emptiness. Because an apology couldn't give me back the years I'd spent believing I was the problem. I called Dr. Martinez. He apologized, I said, publicly. How do you feel? I don't know. It doesn't fix anything. But it's the first time he acknowledged your reality, she said gently, and that matters. Yeah, I said, it does. January 20th. Townsend Industries issued another statement. The board of directors announces that Richard Townsend, company founder, will return as interim CEO while the organization undergoes comprehensive restructuring. Ryan Townsend has resigned from all positions effective immediately. Townsend Industries is committed to restoring trust through transparency, ethical leadership, and a thorough review of our intellectual property practices. We have retained an independent consulting firm to audit our processes and implement stronger safeguards. We recognize that recent events have damaged our reputation and relationships. We take full responsibility and are committed to meaningful change. It was signed by my father. He called me that afternoon. Nora, I wanted you to hear this from me. I'm back temporarily, just until we stabilize. Are you okay, Dad? This is a lot of stress for you. I'm fine, and I owe this to the company, to the employees, to... He paused. To you, I let things fall apart. I'm going to fix them. What's the plan? Full ethics review, new policies on IP, on credit, on collaboration, transparency reports. We're also bringing in a DEI consultant to assess our culture, make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to anyone else. That's good, I said quietly. Nora, I know I can't undo what happened, but I'm trying, really trying. I know, Dad. He hesitated. Would you consider consulting for us? Not on technology, on policy, on how to build a culture where people like you, brilliant, innovative people, feel valued instead of erased. I thought about it, about walking back into that building, about helping the company that had tried to erase me. Maybe, I said, someday, but not yet. That's fair. The doors are open whenever you're ready. We hung up. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready, but I appreciated that he asked and that he didn't pressure me when I said no. February 15th, 2025, Boston Convention Center. I stood backstage at the Women in Tech Gala, listening to 1,200 people settle into their seats. The venue was massive, with a professional stage, bright lighting, screens on either side showing the event logo, and tables arranged in neat rows. Dr. Martinez found me in the green room. You ready? No. I smoothed my dress. Simple black sheath, nothing flashy. What if I freeze? You won't. You're telling your story, that's all. The MC's voice echoed through the space. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Nora Townsend, founder and CEO of Neural Thread Inc. Applause. I walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. I couldn't see faces, only silhouettes. 1,200 women watching me. I took a breath and started. For most of my life, I was told I made people uncomfortable. I was too quiet, too focused, too different. I didn't fit the mold of what my family wanted, so I believed that the problem was me. Silence. They were listening. I spent years trying to shrink, trying to be less, trying to make my work smaller so other people wouldn't feel threatened by it. And when my family tried to erase my work entirely, I almost let them because I was more afraid of conflict than I was of disappearing. I paused and looked out at the shapes in the darkness. But then I realized something. I wasn't uncomfortable. I was just surrounded by people who couldn't see my value. The applause started, scattered at first, then louder. When my family tried to take my work, I had two choices: stay silent to keep the peace, or speak up to keep my integrity. I chose integrity not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I refused to disappear. The applause grew. Some people stood. To every woman here who's been told to shrink, to be quieter, to take up less space, your work matters, your voice matters, and no one, not even family, has the right to take that from you. Standing ovation. The entire room was on its feet. I looked out at them, women who understood, who'd been there, who'd chosen themselves, even when it cost them everything. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. After the gala, I returned to my apartment and opened my laptop. The messages had started during the speech. By the time I got home, there were hundreds. Your story gave me the courage to report my boss for taking credit for my research. I filed a formal complaint today. Thank you. I've been hiding my startup from my family for 2 years because they don't think it's real work. I'm launching publicly next week. You gave me permission. My father told me I'd never be as successful as my brother. I'm sending him the Forbes article in your speech. I'm done shrinking. I left a toxic job because of you. I documented everything just like you said. They tried to claim I breached my NDA. My lawyer proved they were wrong. I'm free now. I'm 19. I just declared my major in computer science. My parents wanted me to choose something practical. I'm doing this anyway because you showed me I could. I read every message, every single one. Some made me cry, some made me laugh. All of them made me realize I wasn't just telling my story. I was part of something bigger, a movement of women who refused to disappear. I responded to as many as I could. Document everything. Protect your work. Don't let anyone make you believe you're the problem. Set boundaries. It's not selfish, it's survival. Your voice matters. Use it. Late that night, Dr. Martinez texted, "You did good, Nora. Really good." I looked around my small apartment, no longer lonely, just mine, and typed back, "I think I finally believe that." March 2025, I moved to San Francisco. Not because I was running away, but because I was moving towards something. Neural Thread's main office was in the Mission District, a bright, open space with whiteboards on every wall and a team that actually valued collaboration over hierarchy. I wanted to be close to it, close to the work that had saved me. I found a small apartment near Dolores Park. 1 bedroom, bay windows, old hardwood floors. Nothing fancy, but mine. I spent a weekend unpacking, setting up my desk, laptop, monitor, and the framed patent certificate James Kirby had given me. I hung photos of Dr. Martinez and me at my MIT graduation, my co-founders at the IPO celebration, and a candid shot from the Women in Tech Gala. No photos of my family. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but I didn't feel guilty about it. On Sunday evening, I called my father. "Dad, I'm in San Francisco now. Moved this weekend." "San Francisco?" He sounded wistful. "That's far." "It's where the company is." "I know. I was hoping you might come back to the East Coast eventually." "Maybe someday," I said, "but not yet." "Fair enough, Nora. If I want to visit, would that be okay?" "Not now. I know you need space, but someday." I thought about my father, flawed and passive, but trying. "Call me first," I said. "Don't just show up. And Dad, I need you to understand. If you come, it's because you want to know me, not because you're trying to fix the family." "I want to know you," he said quietly. "I should have wanted that a long time ago." "Yeah," I said. "You should have." "I'll call before I visit, I promise." We hung up. I stood at my window looking out at the park, the city lights, and the life I was building from scratch. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged to myself. June 2025, Neural Thread announced a partnership that changed everything. We held a press conference at our San Francisco office, small and intimate, with just our team and a handful of journalists. I stood at the front with my co-founders, our CTO pulling up the presentation on the screen behind us. Today, NeuroThread Inc. is proud to announce a partnership with Johns Hopkins Hospital. We've signed a $50 million contract to implement our AI diagnostic platform across their medical network. This technology will improve early detection for pancreatic cancer, lung disease, and neurological conditions, diseases that often go undiagnosed until it's too late. The journalist started typing. Cameras flashed. One raised her hand. Miss Townsend, this is a major milestone. How does it feel to see your work finally recognized at this scale? I thought about that question, about the 3 years I'd spent protecting this algorithm, about the family that tried to take it, about the night I sat alone in my apartment while they celebrated without me. It feels like justice, I said. Not revenge, justice. Another journalist asked, your company's valuation has nearly doubled since the IPO. You're now worth an estimated $4 billion. Does that vindicate your decision to go public with your family story? I didn't go public for vindication, I said. I went public because staying silent was costing me my integrity. The success, the money, the partnerships, all of it. That's not why I did it. But it does prove something. What's that? That the people who told me my work didn't matter were wrong. That I was right to protect it. That I was right to believe in it, even when no one else did. After the press conference, my co-founders opened champagne in the office. To Nora, one of them said, raising a glass, who refused to disappear. We clinked glasses. I looked around at the team. People who saw my work, who valued my voice, who never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. This, I thought, this is what I was fighting for. December 31st, 2025. New Year's Eve, 1 year since the night that changed everything. I was in my San Francisco apartment, but I wasn't alone. My team had come over, 10 of us crowded into my small living room, passing around plates of takeout and arguing about the best sci-fi movies. At 11:30, my phone buzzed. Dr. Martinez, video calling from Boston. I stepped into my bedroom and answered. Nora. She was smiling, with a warm apartment behind her. How are you? Good. Really good. I'm so proud of you this year. Everything you've accomplished. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad I got to be part of it. She paused. Have you heard from your family? My dad texted earlier. Happy New Year, sweetheart. I love you. He's visiting in February. We're having dinner. Just the two of us. And Ryan? Nothing. I don't expect to. And your mother? I looked out the window at the city lights. I don't think she'll ever reach out, and I'm okay with that. Are you really? Yeah. I spent my whole life waiting for her approval. I don't need it anymore. We said our goodbyes. I returned to the living room just as the countdown started on TV. 10, 9, 8. My team joined in, shouting and laughing. 3, 2, 1. Fireworks erupted outside. Someone popped another bottle of champagne. I stood at my window, glass in hand, and thought about last year, about sitting alone in Cambridge, watching strangers celebrate, feeling invisible. I wasn't invisible anymore. I opened my laptop, pulled up a blank document, and started typing. 1 year ago, I was alone on New Year's Eve. Tonight, I'm surrounded by people who see me, not the version they want, but the version I am. Healing didn't mean reconciliation. It meant accepting that I deserved better and building a life that reflected that. I posted it to LinkedIn. Within minutes, comments poured in. Thank you for showing us what boundaries look like. You changed my life this year. I'm not alone anymore because of you. I smiled, closed the laptop, and rejoined my team. This was my family now, the one I chose. So if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. A lot of people have asked me, do you regret it? Was it worth losing your family? Here's the truth. I didn't lose my family. They lost me when they chose reputation over relationship, when they decided my work didn't matter, when they tried to erase me rather than celebrate me. And yes, it was worth it because the alternative was disappearing. I spent 29 years trying to fit into a frame that was never built for me, trying to be quieter, smaller, less, trying to make other people comfortable at the cost of my own existence. I'm done with that. You don't owe anyone, not even family, the right to erase you. If you're sitting on work that you're afraid to claim, document it. Protect it. File the patents, save the emails, record the meetings. Build a paper trail that speaks for itself. If you're being told you're too much or not enough, find people who see you. They're out there. I promise. And if you have to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your integrity, choose integrity every single time because your voice matters. Your work matters, and you deserve to exist fully, loudly, and unapologetically. This is my story. What's yours? If this story meant something to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Check the description below for resources on intellectual property protection, setting boundaries with family, and finding support when you need it most. And if you have a story you want to share about standing up, speaking out, and refusing to shrink, leave it in the comments. I read every one. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.